only 3% of people are going to complete your course. I'm not okay with accepting that that's just how it is.
Welcome back to the Golden Mic. Welcome, Susan and Andrea.
They come in, they get excited. I got them across the threshold. I closed at 80%. 40 people show up for the first day, and then they just drop. I think people want to produce really great experiences. The only thing they know how to do is add more logistical structure, which is not the problem.
Like heavy breathing. Yeah.
Usually people don't start to take this stuff really seriously until it gets at like that 2K to 3K mark, because that's when refunds hurt. You're like more serious. This has to be better.
What do you care about?
I'm called to do this thing. I feel like I have an obligation to now go help others.
If we could teach this, that's a game changer. You can infuse services into those experiences, but the decision on whether you infuse services is the type of guide you want to be. And that's where it comes in. We want to be very hands-on guide. We want to be in the trenches with our people. That's how we want to serve.
Welcome back to the Golden Mic. My name is Josh Forti, and today I have two very special guests. I'm really excited to talk with you both. And before we dive in, we'll do a little intro with some, I asked them for a bio, and it was like the most humble thing that they're like, oh, we've done some kind of cool things. I'm like, yeah, you're just the preferred recommended agency by ClickFunnels, like casually. They have a community of over 2,000 geeks, which we're about to learn out what that means. 15 clients that they've taken through and proven their frameworks and models on. They are framework experts, which is one of the reasons that I'm very excited to geek out with them. I get it now suddenly. Look at that. A little bit about Andrea. She had 18 years in corporate. I'm excited to hear that story as well. Also is ex-military, so I feel like we got some stuff to unpack there. Susan, more of my type, did not go to college or barely. So that's exciting. And their whole focus is around a very much needed space in this industry, which is client experience and the experience and the fulfillment. Once someone comes into your world, how do you take care of them? How do you deliver a fantastic result? And I think it's something that's probably one of the most underserved spots. And so I'm really excited to geek out about that. So with that being said, welcome, Susan and Andrea. Excited to have you here. Welcome to Golden Mic.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is the first double I'm doing here at FHL. Yeah, I've done a couple back at the studio, but how's Vegas so far?
It's Vegas, baby.
Yeah? Yeah?
It's really fun. We've been here for a week prior.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Have you done Vegas before this week?
So my dad lives here. So
Okay,
I
so
come to
you
Vegas a
know
lot.
Vegas,
Yeah.
but-
Yeah.
It's been like a decade since I've been here, but yeah, we haven't really even done Vegas this week either.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
mostly work we've been doing. There was another event we went to, which is why we were here so early, which I didn't get to go to because I got sick. It was a one-day event, and I was like totally sick in bed the one day,
Oh,
so I totally missed out on that.
Well, that's unfortunate, but you
I
got
had
to
to
go?
report back from the front lines. I
Okay.
had to represent. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
it was different. Yeah.
Are your, like, is the relationship between you from an energy perspective exactly how it seems? Let me take a wild stab. We have one that's very energetic and outgoing, and one that seems, and this is not an insult to you, but level-headed,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I would say that's exactly how I would describe it.
Okay, perfect. This is gonna be fun. All right. And just for the camera, Andrea, Susan. Okay. I'm gonna just turn it over to you guys and tell us, like, give us don't go too deep yet. We'll get there. I promise. Give us like a 60-second to 2-minute just overview, broad, like who you are, so that the listeners know. Because I feel like you are wildly underexposed. Like, you deserve a lot more exposure, and I think that you're known in some circles, but not like publicly as much. So give people that have no idea who you are, like, give us some context, and I'll turn it to you.
Gosh. Okay. Well, so quick background. We're business partners. It didn't start out that way though. We just kind of the origins of our business was we have, as you introed us, we have very different backgrounds, very different
Yeah.
experience levels, very different education levels. But we each found our way into the funnel world, really kind of similar paths into the funnel world as well. We both joined similar programs, and we're learning that skill and just exercising it on our own, building up our own businesses. And one day it was like, I guess the way Andrea tells this is she kind of had her eye on me anyway. 'Cause I was in one of the programs, I was kind of like in the spotlight, highlighted by the program owner. And And then I had my eye on Andrea because I was like, who's this girl I keep seeing? We found ourselves in another program. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was like an intimate beta program. So there was like 6 of us in there.
Gosh.
So we
Yeah.
got to learn a lot about each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, this lady's a genius. She is so smart. I need to know what she knows to go help my own clients.
Mm.
It's actually really cool because that's what we're going to be talking about in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, geeking out on ClickFunnels.
And like roughly how long ago was this?
This was like 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So then fast forward, ClickFunnels brought us together even more when they launched the 2.0 version. We were like, let's just start talking about this publicly, like basically conversations about what our hopes and dreams were going to be, because this is the platform of our choice that we were using to serve our clients. And we're like, let's just have these conversations and like let people listen to them. So we just started recording weekly. We published every week for a year before they actually launched the software. And that's how we started growing our community. People started gravitating. It was originally just going to be like a mastermind between people that we knew. We invited in, and then the group like kind of grew, and then they announced the launch, and it grew more because people saw that we'd been publishing content for a whole year on this platform, and now it's now released, right? And then we're like, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We've got we're gonna like divvy up the leads that we're getting from this community, and like that lasted like 3 months. We're like, this is stupid. Let's just be business partners. I mean, and we had already been like, she had been mentoring me prior to us starting to make content together. So it was like a year and a half of us just knowing each other.
Yeah.
Before we
It's a
jumped
good
in and
intro
made that
period though,
decision.
like kind of like so it wasn't just a
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and because we are different and we like autonomy is important to both of us. Like it was kind of like one of these like magic, like how do we make this work in a way we don't want to kill each other and we like working together and
Well, I think it's different too for a business partner relationship versus a owner integrator.
Yeah.
Right. Because like I have an integrator and like every test we take describes us as like you're the exact opposite on every spectrum, right? But it works because but it's very different. With business partner. Yeah.
Well, and I think we're fortunate in that even though we're business partners and we both are like, we gravitate toward the entrepreneur visionary light, that type of person. Andrea is actually more that, and I am more operator. So I'm like, oh, I'm actually kind of not visionary, even though I love entrepreneurship. Like would step into visionary role for the sake of my own business if I was the leader of it. And so it's been fun figuring out our dynamic and me having to a little bit like let go of the reins of like, I don't have to be the visionary. Like I have my visionary. I can step more into what I'm good at. And which is more operator and, marketing and just and so we actually are opposites and we do complement each other really well.
100%. And I don't think it'd work otherwise. But also you're equals, like your business, right? Like I own 100% of my business. So like I have a trump card, right? You know what I mean? It's like, and I don't ever really have to use it, but I'm like, I also have it, right?
Well, and it's a different dynamic, right?
Well, and we went into business together, one of the first conversations we had is like, we have to know how to fight. Like,
that's good.
And we encourage conflict. So it's not like unhealthy conflict, but healthy conflict. And we, even sometimes like some of our clients and some of the people in our community, we have to kind of prep them of like, you might get uncomfortable. Like her and I are comfortable with this. Like we know how to navigate this, but it might be uncomfortable to someone like an onlooker again, but our best stuff comes from those conflicts. So
yeah, because it's friction, right?
yes.
Okay, give us a little context on who your client is. You say your clients. So who do you serve? Like, give us that.
Okay, so without a shadow of doubt, no matter where we find them, the people who we want to serve are people who are deep experts. They've usually been getting money through some kind of service trade or either they've been in a corporate gig. But they're like not your, I'm an expert because I read a book.
Right.
They're your expert in terms of they've had time in the seat. They either have some degree of formal or informal education. They have experience and they have, again, time in the seat, meaning a lot of iterations of this thing. They are a true, I know my stuff. They also tend to be people who are playing what I call the infinite game. So they're not like a definitive skill set that they're teaching. It's more of the Simon Sinek infinite game where it's like, they're just trying to stay in the game. They're trying to get better at the game. And so the skill set that they're teaching is trying to help people just stay in the game, get better at the game. So we have a lot of,
that's fun.
Coaches, meditation, personal development. I mean, it's amazing. But so that is, no matter who we work with, those are normally people who come to us. That is the non-negotiable.
Okay.
Also, because they are an expert, tend to have characteristics like they don't want to market, they don't want to sell, they don't really know how to do that. They just want to teach their thing, and
Yeah.
they're not great at marketing language. They think losing their beautiful romantic language is actually um, you know, not good for the content itself. Like they're
Yeah.
almost like demeaning to the content. So
Yeah.
that tends to be a common thread. And then
Mhm.
just recently, because most people we're working with came from the funnel world, they understood funnels. But most recently, we've opened up our doors to expand more towards the YouTube creators who
Mm.
are now at like, they've hit that 1,000 viewership. They've maybe tasted a little bit of ad revenue and they're like, I'm working way too hard for what I'm actually getting. So how do I actually make that better?
Okay, so are
yeah.
you with the creators just to clarify? Because I actually had Mark Beal on.
Oh yeah. We
Yeah.
know Mark Mill really well.
Yeah.
He used to be the YouTube advisor in our community.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And we talked about it because I'm like, there's two very different business models with YouTube. There's the creator business model.
Yes.
And then there's the entrepreneurship business model, right?
Yes.
And it sounds like it's like they are tasting the creator and they're like, this sucks because we love it, but also nothing.
Yes.
You're bringing them into
Exactly.
got it. The business.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, we kind of talk about it like bridging between like our space that we're all used to and like the entrepreneur world. It's like, are you offer first or are you content first? Like, are you entering into this venture of yours from offer first and like, I have this thing, I made this product, and now I got to go figure out how to make content.
Yeah.
Or were you making content and you're like, now I know how to figure out what my offer can be to now give to my audience that I've built up.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like that distinction because that is like quite literally the distinction, right?
Mhm.
Right there, like content versus offer. Do you have a preference like that worked with your model?
I think we have a preference that works with our skill set.
Mm,
So I
okay.
think our skill set is more geared towards the content first
Interesting.
entrepreneur.
Okay.
We have historically only served info first entrepreneurs. The problem in that space is that they need traffic and content help. And that while we can teach it, we're not experts in it.
Got it.
We're more experts in the like, how do you create a great product experience and
Yeah.
fulfill on that?
Well, let's dive into that piece because I want to dive in like really well into that because I love this. I love the online space. I mean, it's my world, right? And like when people are like, you should broaden out, I'm like, why? Right? Like it's growing, it's huge. Like this is my people, right? And we kind of suck at making products, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like we just kind of do, which by the way, I love working with service providers, right? We're very selective with anyone that's a coach that comes in. We let them, but like they're kind of vetted, right? Because I'm like, you kind of got to know your shit. Like, you kind of, you know what I mean? Like if you don't, But service providers, it's like, it's way easier because you're doing it, right? But I want to understand your models and your like how you deliver this. So first off, what do you do? Right? Like what is your offer? Because it's not marketing, right? It's not lead flow, right? What is it that you actually like? What's the problem you solve and what you do for people?
It's interesting to ask this question actually, because we literally, we're at Funnel Hacking Live right now.
Yeah.
And so you're always like breaking it and reshaping it and breaking it and reshaping it. And so we have a model right now that we do offer. It's called I always mess with the background, the
Creator
creator
cash
flow
flow.
system. Yep. And in the creator cash flow system, it is taking somebody through the full, like, how do I actually create a product? Okay, now that I have the product, how do I market it? How do I sell it? How do I actually make it better?
Okay.
And so it does take somebody through that entire thing. But our uniqueness of it is that we take the user experience background and like, how do you start with crafting the actual journey to do that. Don't start with the other stuff. And it always starts with like how the entrepreneur actually wants to serve. So a lot of times I think when we think of products, we think of like, I have this expertise. I'm going to teach this expertise.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you said something very
Sorry.
important there.
Yeah.
So important.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just said it starts with how you want to serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Kristen Rushman, you know her?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Had her
Yeah.
on, and she had the phrase, it was like, I can either serve more people or people more. And I'm like, write it down.
That's
Right?
a
Like
good one. That's
okay,
a writer downer.
right?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about?
Yes, because So because we have the spectrum of as a guide, if you're stepping into that and you're promising some kind of transformation, we strongly feel that you have a responsibility for that transformation. That cannot just be words on a sales
100%.
page. If you want to
Yes.
go be a TED Talk
Good.
speaker
Let's-
and you want to move the needle or you want to do a book, right? Great. Like the world needs that. But if you're on a sales page and you're promising a transformation,
Yep.
your moral obligation to do that,
Yeah.
to create a space to do that. But where people mess up, because we don't have a lot of great models in this entrepreneurial space, is where people mess up is they think they actually have to be in the trenches with their people all the time. You know what I mean? And we see like models like, I don't want to have to push them. You know what I mean? They should be doing it on their own. So we have a lot of talk around like what kind of guide be with respect to how accessible and how to what degree do you want to hold people accountable.
Okay.
And so we have models around where you fall. So we have like this 4-quadrant model of like wherever you fall, now structure your product experience around that.
Okay. So and the listener is like clear. Someone comes to you. I want to talk specifically about the clients that you're working with here for a second.
I come to you. I'm not a complete beginner.
Yeah.
I've sold something, right? So I've got this thing that I've been selling and it's been selling, but I don't really know I don't know how it's packaged or, right? It's that piece, right? And you're bringing structure to that and giving them different ways to package essentially and create a user and client experience.
Kind of.
Okay.
So it's more of, so we actually, I'm going to give you an example of one of our clients right
Perfect. That'd be great.
She has made multiple millions. She launches challenges. She's killing it. And she's created a program that is, to the outside looking in, is like perfectly structured. It has a roadmap. It has a success path. It has all of the check marks, right? But she says, this is what we hear time and time again. They come in, they get excited. I got them across the threshold. I closed at 80%. And like 40 people show up for the first day. And then they just drop. And they drop. And then they drop. And then they drop. And so then typically what ends up happening is, I don't think we want to produce crap. You know what I mean? I think people want to produce really great experiences.
Yeah.
The only thing they know how to do is like add more logistical structure, which is not the problem.
Heavy breathing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so most of the time when people come to us, especially at like a U level, it's usually like they're higher achievers. They don't need the things that the majority of the people need in order to do the thing, because they're just self-motivated and
that was the worst realization ever, by the way. Right. I remember boxing, you know Dan Henry, of course.
Oh yeah.
But his COO, Joe.
Yeah.
And like, I was boxing one time and I was like, dude, I just don't get it. He's like, bro, we're not all Josh Forti.
Right.
I'm like, what do you mean, dude? I just show up I just work. And he's like, exactly. Right. And I'm like, oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think that's the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs are making, because most of us are like high achievers, self-driven. Like, we're going to figure it out. Like, oh, you just gave me the map. Okay, I'm going to go make sure that I follow that, and we forget that, okay, that's us. Most people are not that, but we don't have the tools. We don't, like, a lot of us don't know the tools like to help someone who's not a high achiever. Like, and so like, I was just talking to someone a couple days ago who he's sold, I don't know where he's at, multi-millions as well. Not one of our clients, but I was having this conversation with him and he was trying to understand what we do too. And I was like, same example. He's like, oh, so like I only get like 25% of my buyers to actually even enter my product that they just bought. And you're saying that you could maybe help with that. But the words that stood out to me was like, he said, it actually makes me disgusted that that's the case, but I've just had to come to terms with it because he doesn't know what to do. I was like, yeah, I think that's
That's crazy.
Yeah. Most people just don't even know. Like, it's like, well, I can't make them do it. I can lead the horse to water, but I can't make them drink.
What level, like what price of product are we talking?
It varies. Yeah. The one that in my example, it's I think that he sells his stuff for like low ticket to 1,000 is that price range. But and is that the one that you told me?
I mean, usually people don't start to take this stuff really seriously unless they're naturally a fulfillment oriented person until it gets at like that 2K to 3K mark, because that's when refunds hurt. That's when the reputation is more on the line. That's when they've probably invented or invested a little bit more into what they've delivered. So like at that point, like at least you have a core offer of like 2 to 3K. That's when you might start to get serious. 6K for sure. You're like more serious. 10K, you're like, this has to be better. And I think there's a heightened sense of responsibility the more money you take from someone.
Yeah.
Not take, but you receive from someone. Yeah. And so, because they're probably holding you more accountable.
Yeah. Well, it also depends upon who oh man, like money psychology is crazy, but different conversation.
That's what you
yeah.
We can take a school from you.
My
on
gosh.
That one.
Oh my gosh. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to keep going down this rabbit hole, but I think some context here is going to be really important. So I want you to give us your story. I want you to back up and be like, here's how we got, like, here's why we love this. Because there's like 18 years of corporate and no college. Somehow that came to this conclusion that this was important. And I think that would be
We
yeah.
actually align on the exact same thing, even though our backgrounds are so different.
Well, okay, so you jump in when it makes sense to. So the part that I kind of glossed over when I was telling our story to begin with, I was like, oh, she's a genius. I need to know what she knows. It was this. So I was serving my own clients, doing the funnel building thing. And I had this client that she was killing it. She was $1,000 product, um, running challenges, selling, 30 to 50K each month that she was running that challenge. And uh what I saw though happening on the back end, I was like, but like where can we get more testimonials? Where are these people getting to when they are actually buying your thing? And problem number one was I couldn't figure out with the tech that we were using where people were actually at within the program. Like where are they at within the journey that they just bought? Problem number two was if I was able to get some information of like, oh, well, this person, it does look like they emailed in about this problem. So I can guess that they were in this spot. But problem number two was if they all kind of seem to be getting stuck in this one area. And I don't know how to help them past it. I don't know how, like, she's already teaching the thing, she's giving them information, but I'm not sure how to like help my client make her program better. And that's when I saw what Andrea does with she calls it journey crafting. And I was like, oh, you have like an actual framework and a science to creating programs that help, it facilitates
Yeah.
the progress through them.
What were what were you doing for your clients when you discovered this? Like, what were you hired to do in the first?
So yeah, I was hired to build like the sales funnels, the challenge funnels, the front end funnels.
Interesting.
But
Because then you went and looked. Oh, got it.
Then
Got
I
it,
was
got
like,
it.
okay, you're making all these sales, but and as a funnel builder would do, who's helping someone to make more sales and bring more people into their program, like, hey, let's get more testimonials. Let's make sure that you're capitalizing on like, oh, are people? She had like when you get through my thing, you've like graduated. And I was like, okay, well, where are these people that are graduating? How can we use this in the marketing? And it's like, well, one, it's not being captured, but I don't think that they're actually getting to that point in the program itself. So yeah, it was just this realization that I was still kind of new into the space where everyone seems to be okay with the average number of only, what is it, like only 3% of people are going to complete your course, right?
There's like what?
Yeah, I was like, are we
Then kill the course, like
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was like looking at this. I'm like, why do you only have like a handful of the people that you're selling month after month actually doing this thing? I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that answer. I'm not okay with accepting that that's just how it is.
Yep.
There has to be something more that we can be doing to actually feel morally in alignment with taking people's money and promising them something, but not actually giving them the right tools that they're needing to do it.
Because like technically on paper, you could argue, well, we gave them what they needed, but it's like you gave them the information, but you promised a transformation. Back to your point, right? That's incredible that you can articulate that, right? Coming back to you, why did you care?
Why did I care?
Like it bothered you enough to like where you're like, I'm going to not build funnels anymore and I'm going to go figure this out. And I'm like, I think that speaks to you as a person, right? So why did it bother you?
So up till that point, the couple of programs that I jumped into that brought me into the space, and I won't name drop, but there was two specific ones, and one led me to the next. It's where I got my skills to do that. Both of those were incredibly well-crafted programs, and I had experienced that for myself of like, I came from like network marketing. It wasn't working. I'm not making money. I'm losing money. And I need to just find something that I can do for myself, put the expense of joining those programs onto credit cards because I didn't have money to invest in them. And I had to make it work. But thankfully, I went through them. I was able to get what I needed to launch my business. So I got the result. I got the transformation that was promised to me. And so I knew what that looked like. I knew it was possible. I knew that there was a way to create an incredible program to give to somebody and they actually can go and do it. And when earlier when we were talking about like us high achievers, I would say I'm not as high of an achiever. Like I don't know, you might disagree. I need it to walk me through step by step.
Yeah, but high achiever doesn't mean that you don't need that. I think that's just high achiever is like you're going to do the work and get it done, right? Like you're going to achieve.
Right.
Yeah.
But if there's like holes and there's too much friction, for me, I'll start looking for something else. Like that thing's not serving me. There's way too much friction there. I'm not getting the answers that I need. I'm going to go somewhere else. I didn't experience that with those two programs. So I'm like, okay, my client's program is not like theirs. How do I make it like theirs?
Got it. Just real quick, the 2 programs that you got, what were the price points?
1,000.
1,000. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How did I get into this?
Yeah.
Circle back to the question.
Yeah. We'll come back around to that.
Yeah. So, and I do want to say like her core value there of like, I'm not okay with this. That is our connector. Yeah. Okay. So after I left corporate and again, got myself fired by a venture capitalist guy. And I was just determined, like, I'm never going back. Right. I know. That's why the bootstrap entrepreneur world, I'm like, I'm in it.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Like we can forgive you in corporate if you got fired. Right.
Rebellious.
Yeah. If you like left on good terms, then we'd be like,
right. Exactly.
Friends with the enemy, like,
yeah. Exactly. No. Definitely enemy.
Throwing it behind you on your way out.
Yeah.
So I was just determined to not go back to corporate, but I had all the skills that were really only corporate skills. Like, you know what I mean? Didn't translate to this entrepreneurial world.
Yeah.
And so I was at a point where my severance is all gone. I was like at a point where I was like doing Lyft and like making sandwiches at this bougie, like sandwich shop at night.
The ultimate thing though.
Like, I was like,
was Uber and Olive Garden, right?
Yeah,
you're like,
exactly.
Here we go.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And I was like, I was just so determined to figure out how to do this. And then, as the story goes, found Russell and then found Catherine Jones, and that's actually how we connected. But and I started this agency, and in my mind, all I have is this like corporate consultant role to clients. So like, cause that's where I came from. But as I was working with more entrepreneurs, like I kind of had, I don't say too much strategy, but it was like too abstract. It wasn't tangible enough. It wasn't fast enough. It wasn't, you know what I mean? And so, and I was doing user experience, but I couldn't use any of that language, because that was all like, that would not work in this world. And so I kept trying to like break the model, and like I was using journey crafting, but I was just doing it. I wasn't teaching it, And I remember though, like I kept hitting walls because I couldn't articulate it to clients. I couldn't, you know what I mean? Like tell them what I was doing.
Journey crafting here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And because every single customer that I had got up to that point, I know this was divine intervention. This was not of my own making. It was a membership build. And membership builds are more akin to these like multi-touch point customer journeys. And while I was doing funnels, the membership build was the main purpose of the project. And it was like, that was, again, divine intervention that happened. But I was also grieving because I was like, I can't, all of this skill set that I had and like my credentials and all, like it didn't mean anything in this world.
Yeah.
And so I remember like crawling into a ball, just like crying and being like, okay, I don't have to know this. I don't have to do this. Like, just please let me like stay in this entrepreneurial game.
Yeah.
That's all I care about right now. And it was not more than a month later that Susan and I were in that program where I was talking about what I do with clients, not using any of my words, you know what I mean? Not using any of the like experts. I was just talking about what I did with clients. She was like, will you teach me that? And I was like, in my mind, I was like, I don't know if I can, I don't know if it's possible. So, but then, we got into sessions and like started teaching her it. And then not only did like she learn it, she's a natural, but she built on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, if we could. So that was kind of what turning point was.
When you say, what'd you call it? Client mapping?
Customer journey or journey crafting.
Journey crafting.
Yeah.
Like 60-second. What's that?
Yeah. So if you were to look at any big enterprise, the way that they develop products, it is a very systematic way that they develop products with product research, behavioral based, not marketing based, behavioral based product research, early concept testing, early beta programs, then release, and there's a whole science to how this is done.
I just thought they were all evil rich billionaires.
Well, that might be.
I love you, Elon. All right. Don't slice my funding. I'm just kidding. Okay.
So,
That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, I'm taking the principles of that, but I've infused some kind of corner principles that I think fit better for entrepreneurs
Got it.
who don't have that time and don't have that runway and don't have those resources.
Okay. So you bring the corporate understanding of what it looks like at mass scale,
Yes.
which is hugely beneficial. And you bring you were literally the user that got to experience it done well and then see it not done well.
Exactly.
And it was blended.
I think she also brings sometimes I can get too abstract. So I think she also brings the no kidding, like how do you actually make this doable in this situation right now?
I probably need more of you in my life. Sometimes I feel like my clients are like this and then I'm like, just do that. And they're like, why didn't you say that? I'm like, oh.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
My bad.
Just
Yes.
be like I'm
She holds
5.
me so accountable. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a couple rapid fire questions on this that are just in my brain. And I think this will transition us well into the next one. This is a really good setup. Okay. I think that I personally think that the low ticket info product, let's say sub 1,000 and sub below, is just broken pretty much across the board, right? There are exceptions, obviously. The best program I ever bought was Sam Evans. I'm not sure if you've been through his consulting accelerator. It's a $2,000 one. Oh my gosh, right? It's worth more than people's $25,000 programs, right? It was right. So I got to see that, and then it's like every other program is just like, oh, you suck compared to right. So there are gold standards in the industry, but it would seem as though the amount of effort and work that it takes to make a product good, right, is quite high, right? It takes a lot of even if it doesn't take a lot of time, even if you'd hire it out or there's intentionality in it. It's work, right? So do you guys mostly do ongoing subscription-based products? Or what is the philosophy or method behind when something is specifically $1,000 products and below? And I'm going to, and correct me, feel free to update this lens or this frame. I'm looking at front-end products as customer acquisition products. That's it, right? There's mid-funnel, there's back-end. But I'm talking the primary objective here is offset my cost to acquire, right? Educate them, get them bought in, right? What's your model on how you price, whether it's recurring, that?
So where I thought you were going was, why do I care if they're not, if I'm just selling them this thing that's $1,000 or less, why do I want to put in the time, right? And the energy?
Definitely not that.
That's not what you were asking.
That's not what I was asking, but
Yeah.
I bet you some people would ask that question.
Because it's not, to answer your other question, not primarily subscription products. But the reason is because, especially if you're using those products as lead acquisition, you deliver a crap thing and they're like, well, that was not worth my money. Are they going to buy your next thing? Are they going to buy your high ticket, 2,000 plus offer? And yeah, they might, because maybe they didn't even look at the first thing that they bought and they're just in your world and they're actually just want to go buy that instead. But a lot of the people are looking at what they bought and they're like, that didn't deliver what I thought it was going to deliver. And you've lost trust and credibility. Okay. Now
I think it's also really important in your question, two things. One is, I think in order for us to have an intelligent question on that, we have to know that there's a difference between the business model and the experience model. Those are two very different things. And while they may connect to one another, and to your point, I might not want to invest a lot in the experience if I'm not getting a lot on the return, right? Or whatever.
I think I phrased my question incorrectly, if that's
okay.
what we're coming into.
Okay.
But keep going on that. Yep.
Yeah, but I think there's a huge difference between the experience model and the business model. And so if the business model is, I need a front end acquisition system, right? Then all of the genius of how you price point that, whether you value-based pricing or whether you do any other pricing model that you might see out there in order to make that worth whatever that product is, all those conversations and that strategy, we're not saying adjust those. Follow your guru on that one.
Yeah.
But what you price it at and what your business model is around it does not have to be tied to the experience model that you deliver.
Okay, I'm going to push you on that.
Yeah.
To define the difference.
Okay. So a business model is usually around, how do I price it? How do I position it? How do I package it? Where do I put it out to? Who am I targeting? Right? It's all of the sales and marketing things that all of us have deep conversations about.
Okay.
And how do you price it? And what is your pricing model? And what is the pricing structure? And what does it mean for your business? Is it a front end marketing strategy supposed to get leads? Right? These are all business model questions, right?
Okay.
That are critical. You have to answer them.
Okay.
An experience model is how my customers actually experience the thing that I create. So, and there's 6 different types of experiences that you ultimately create.
Oh, okay. I'm taking.
Yes.
Okay. Go.
So those 6 experiences are, the first one is what we call is a sprint model.
Okay.
And so what this is this would be like, I am trying to get them as quickly as possible to change a behavior, to experience the change in behavior.
Okay.
And it is a bite. It is just a bite.
Okay.
And that's
I'm
it.
following. Yep. Got it.
Okay. Second type of experience, which is the one most of us unfortunately know, but that's the course experience. Normally, course experiences are not your front end offer. It's probably one of the worst front end offers you could do.
No, it should be mid.
Yes.
Like it should be a middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because of course it's heavier. It's a little bit more hefty. It is also, it's going to take maybe a little bit longer before they feel the behavioral change.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's self-paced and it's DIY-ish, right? Okay. Those are the 2 most popular ones. Then we get the third one that gets thrown in all the time as like what we call the buffet bonus. And that is the reference library model. So this is, here's my library of stuff that you can access.
Oh, just everything.
Yeah. Like my content library or my library of all the things that are in my world that you now have access to. And again, there is a point in a time where a reference model and a reference experience can be good and it should be injected. Again, not normally a front end, and normally it's later. It's after they've experienced something else with you, because they don't have your lexicon. They don't have your language. Accessing the library. It's like if you went into the library and didn't know what the Dewey Decimal System is, right? Like how do you find stuff,
Right.
But yeah.
I just use ChatGPT, so.
Yeah, exactly. Libraries.
I'm a millennial, all right? Come on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so those are the 3 most common models.
Okay.
Then we have a 4th model, which is what we call the event model. So a lot of times this gets confused. So we're at an event right now, Funnel Hacking Live. The purpose of an event model is buying behavior.
Yep.
It's not behavioral change. Let me get you into a state where you're actually having buying momentum into the transformation.
Yeah.
So that's what an event model is. Event models are also good for motivational boosts. So maybe you already have a buyer community, but you're going to do an event experience in order to make a boost in momentum towards the behavioral again.
Execution. Yeah.
Yes.
That's why we run in-person events.
But it's almost like making them, I mean, essentially when you're doing that, you're essentially like, you're re-enlisting them in the buying decision.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
You just resell them.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the 4 that are the most common. There's 2 out there that are not as common. And so this one is the coaching program. This is a highly personalized, and this is, the word coach gets thrown around a lot in our world. And so there's 2 different types of coaches. There's an agenda-based coach, which is more of like, I'm going to teach you something and take you through it. True coaching, it would be like executive coaching, where it's like, Josh, what do you want to work on? Let's set the agenda based on what you want to accomplish, right? It is a highly personalized experience, right? And so that's the coaching, or that's the coaching program.
Yep.
And then the last one is the mastermind. So masterminds are community-based. So my whole experience and what I want to try to understand in this particular experience, or what I bought into, is I want to collaborate with other like minds, with people who are at my same level. These are the mastermind experiences.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding, because
Yeah.
this is the first time I've actually made this distinction. These are all info product based, right?
Yeah.
They're not service based. Right?
You can infuse services into those experiences, but the decision on whether you infuse services is the type of guide you want to be. And that's where it comes in. So we want to be very hands-on guide. We want to be in the trenches with our people. That's how we want to serve. So we can couple our service with the info product, right, to make that the experience. But that's an intentional decision on our part, because that's the kind of guide that we want to be. If you don't want to be that kind of guide, then you have to leverage technology for the accountability part. And you have to be able to basically add your service as an augmentation through technology.
And these are the client experience models.
Those are the experience models.
Experience models. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can see none of that had anything to do with how I price it, how I package it, how I
Well,
position it,
that's what I'm
right?
wondering though.
Yes.
And this is where
There
I'm
is a
like,
correlation. I will say there is a
okay,
correlation.
and
Yeah. Yes.
so this is my frame, and I am very aware that I'm like, not everybody does. We all have our ways that we make decisions, right? And so when I look at the industry, like, let's go back to the more impact versus, like, I can either help more people or I can help people more deeply, right? And it's like, if I'm looking for more people, like, these things make sense in my mind, right? And I go, if I want to work with people at the deepest level, I just do it backwards, right? So I'm like, I start at $25,000 and I go backwards, right? And the lowest thing that I would do, right, is like, that's the last thing, right? And, or 10,000 and go, right, right. And it's for me, I look at it and I go, ooh, no, business model and client experience, like, these are very, like, they're very intertwined, because if I'm going to go, and if the business model I'm going to run is I want a high high margin, high profit business that's going to put money in my pocket, to where, like, I always frame it like this. If I go, if I had one client, how much would they need to pay me to where if I only had them, I could deliver the best possible thing, right? How much would that have to be? And, like, if everything went wrong, I could still make sure I deliver this. Like, that's how much it needs to be. So let's just say that's $20,000, right? And then I work my way out of it, right? That's a business model. And the product that you would choose, or the client experience you would choose, would be very relevant to the model, correct?
Okay, so but you're doing something that I have to like tease apart just a little
Please
bit
do.
that
Yes.
most people do. They do this, and that is, you said something so critical. You are willing to be there and go deep with someone, and the price point justifies it. But that value that you have and your willingness to do that, not everybody has that, right? You could create an amazing program by investing in a piece of technology, or, I mean, we see it all the time, right? Like, there is tech out there and software programs out there where you don't even know who the leader of the organization is, or, you know what I mean? If you look at like Mastermind or these kind of models, right?
So this
You
is where you're
don't.
talking about how you want to be involved in service.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
That's the model. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Because if you didn't have that value, but you still had the monetary goal, you would figure out a way to do it. You would figure out a way to make that monetary goal achievable through advanced technology, through innovations, through some other avenue.
I see what you're saying. So what, like, are there, like, do you have a frame for, like, is it like a spectrum of level of involvement? Is that?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
okay.
There's three. There's usually three buckets.
Okay.
So the first bucket is usually it's low to high with like a medium bucket. So if you're like, I don't want to be accessible and I don't want to hold people accountable, that's Mastermind. Like, if you go to Mastermind and however many billions of dollars that they've made so far, they've just brought in some of the best talents in the entire world, created really great content, have a fairly okay journey, and then they sell it. You know what I mean? At a yearly rate of to however many millions, right? And that's the model. But that is low accessibility. I don't have access to any of the experts, and I have almost no accountability whatsoever, right? An amazing product, you know, versus what you're talking about is you're like high accessibility and even high accountability, because you're giving direct feedback, right? And you're actually checking in on people, I would imagine, and saying like, did you do the thing? What's happening? Why isn't that working? Let's adjust. Right?
Interesting. Okay. I have so many questions that I want to ask to pull this apart, but I'm wondering if we're this is really good, right? This is really, like, to pull it all apart. I'm gonna ask a personal question, and then feel free to give. This isn't a framework question. You can use a framework to get there, but it's like, I think this is probably your personal opinion at this point, for this, which is, just because you could do something doesn't mean it's the best option, right? And just because someone could charge a lower amount or be less involved or do a thing, I'm like, or just zoom out and, like, actually think about what you're trying to do and accomplish in life. Because I would imagine, and I could be wrong, because not everybody's me, right? But, like, I would imagine that most people don't want to stay they don't want to stay right where they're at forever, right? And if the goal is that you want the most amount of leverage, because that's leverage is, like, from a principle, like a physics level, it's like the only way to accept, like, the only way to go forward is with leverage. Then you should make this, like, you should pick the things that you do based on what you need to get where you want to go, right? And it would seem to me, this is my personal like problem with the online space in general, is I think a lot of coaches are capable of delivering really good products, but the reason, and experiences and all that, but the reason that they don't is because they're so selfish, not on purpose. They don't even take the time to zoom out and look at the big picture of what is it that they want, what makes the best sense for it. They just go, it's almost like they're too close. Does that make sense? And I think that what's helpful about you guys is you have a model for you at least have a framework, like a model to like look at and assess it where it's at. But how do you go and actually, I have to tell a story on this, like for some context, because we're in the weeds a little bit. Okay. So when I work with clients, we bring them in. The very first thing that I do is I sit down with them one-on-one and I look, right? And one of the big ahas for me going through this was, and I'm working with, I know every single one of my clients' businesses, right? I don't actually spend that much time on it. It's like an hour call, but like I know their offer, I know their business. And what was fascinating is I learned how few people have actually thought about whether or not their offers are aligned with their targets that they want to get to. Because I'd be like, hey, how much money do you want to make? And they'd be like, $1 million. And I'm like, cool. What is the most amount of money someone can give you? And they're like, $3,000. And I'm like, math, right? Like just like, okay. And then I'm like, only way that makes sense. Do you have a massive list? Like, do you have some other leverage besides the price point? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, okay, so it doesn't work, right? And to me, I think a lot of people feel stuck. And I don't think this is what you guys are doing, but I think a lot of coaches and service providers that provide solutions, they provide solutions to problems or to people's needs that shouldn't be there that shouldn't even be an option. Like you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if your bone is broken, it's like, go get it a cast on. It's like, no, you don't have the option to go put 2 sticks and tie some duct tape. Like that's not an option. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's why that's again, going back to it, there's a business model and experience model, and you have to have both.
Okay.
You have to have alignment with who you are and where you want to go with your business in both. So the very first step in our model is align, because it is like, I think the business model part of it, right? We give recommendations on models and we give recommendations, but I think what you're doing with your clients is even better in terms of, let's actually look at where you want to go with your business and how do you actually structure in the business model to do it. And that includes like, what are your offers? What are your price points? How do you position that?
Okay.
When do you do it? What's the connection between the two? When do you venture into the next one from an operations standpoint, right? Like these are the business model questions that I agree with you. The problem we have in our community is that we have so many people that are fulfillment oriented. They don't even think about the business model part. They're like, I'm just going to go serve this way. This is what I feel comfortable doing. I'm just going to start teaching them this thing, right? And it's like, whoa. It's like, first of all, you got to get the business model down first, right? Like you have to understand that. But then the experience model is you also have to be in alignment with who you are. Like, don't create an experience that you don't actually, in your full heart and body, want to embrace and support.
Yeah. So like, how many times have you heard your peers say like, oh, crap, I built something that I actually hate. Right.
Yeah.
A
lot.
It's like, I built this, like a very specific example. I built this coaching thing and I actually hate it. It drains me. I think it's more of like, you could go do those things that most people are making, what they need to at the goal. You could go do what Josh is doing, but is it fulfilling you? Is it draining you? Is it like, so this example is like, I built this coaching offer, but they had like a lot of clients in this coaching offer. They're like, actually, I don't like coaching. I like more of the mastermind, like, and sort of some consulting instead. I don't like the coaching. So the price points can be the same on those two models. It was just like, but how do you want to deliver? How are you wanting to fulfill? What experience model are you wanting?
Paint me a vision, because that's important. That makes sense. So paint me a vision with where you guys are headed with this, right? So like, anytime that people like can get into the weeds on their stuff, it's like, oh, okay, so you've like thought about this, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you like, so, but that usually then also means that there's something you're trying to go build, right? So fast forward this out 3, 5, 10 years from now, right? What does Geek Squad?
Geek out.
Geek
Yeah.
Out. Geek Out. What
Yeah.
is Geek Out and what you are doing with client fulfillment? Like, what does that look like and what are you trying to accomplish and build it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we have monetary goals, but I don't think that's necessarily what you're asking.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, more
Yeah.
like, I'll give you a perfect
Is it-
example. Brad Gibb, one of my
Yeah.
friends, when I asked
Yeah.
him, I was like, dude, if you get to the end of your life,
Yeah.
it's like, you don't even care if like people know you. And
Yeah.
he's like, I'm like, that's weird. What do you care about?
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want to solve the wealth problem for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll start us off.
Yeah.
The thing that drive the common thing that drives the two of us is, okay, so we've established very different educational
Yeah.
experiences and backgrounds. What drives us is that like the world needs people out there teaching their expertise. The world needs Josh teaching, when I say world, it's not, you're not going to get your thing to the every person in the whole world.
No,
It's your
right.
little piece. You're going to have your little piece, your little community of the world. And people aren't, you've gone through something that impacted your life. It changed your life. And now you're like, cool, I'm going to go now help others do this thing. Right.
Yep.
Russell Brunson talks about this all the time. I am called to do this thing. If I went and learned a skill set, or I know how that thing improved my life, I feel like I have obligation to now go help others.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I wrestled with that concept for
Yeah.
so long because I think people are like, but do we really? Right. And
Mhm.
I would go, yes. You know why? Because we're decentralizing
Yes.
education.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Like we're literally putting it back in the hands of us,
Yes.
not centralization.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
So good.
No, I'm so glad
100%.
that you
Yes.
interrupted me and said
Yes.
that because that's exactly where I was
Yes.
going.
Okay.
So like our bigger mission is whether you are going through formal education, colleges, universities, as Andrea did, and it served her well, or you're not like I did, and I went apprenticeship route, mentor route, hiring, buying people's programs and learning that way. The impact can be similar. Andrea has an incredible skill set. I have a skill set. We can go build businesses. We can go take that expertise that we have gained in whichever way that we have, go change lives. And we're trying to empower others that have these expertise. We have, Andrea talked about like, we worked with the infinite game type people, but we have people that are like, I'm just trying to teach who has to be in their family business now as the bookkeeper to just learn how to do bookkeeping for their family now. We have, someone who's like, I'm just trying to help people, like empower people to know how to use power tools around their home, right? You have this expertise that can help people in some way, but you may not know how to achieve that. You may not know how to actually go and do that thing. So we spend a lot of time, even in this conversation, a lot of time talking about like the Joshes of the world that you already have your thing. You already, we're just kind of talking about improvement in a lot of ways here. But what about all the people that they don't even know how to turn, they've built an audience by maybe sharing some YouTube videos. They don't even know how to turn that into something more that actually can go from the information to transformation.
Yep.
That was so well said. Like that destroys that replaced every frame that we just were debating over. Right. But I think that's, here's what I heard. Tell me if I heard correctly. I heard that you care very deeply about the client experience, period, and are aware that like with 7 billion people on the planet, like 6 is actually a really small number of different, right?
Mhm.
And it's not just about it's not just about how we think about that space. Like you literally are like, hey, in whatever capacity, in whatever place, like we are that like a solution for people of like, here are your client experience models. Yes.
Mhm.
Got it. Okay.
Well, and
That's-
if I could
yeah.
go a little bit more on the what drives me path, and I'm
Yeah.
going to speak for myself because I'm not sure if Andrea fully
Which
engages
is
in
be
this,
good.
but I have a major problem, kind of what you were just saying, Josh. I have a major problem that our society in this country and in other countries have gotten to this place where our kids, teenagers graduating from high school, are pushed and driven
Yeah.
into the universities.
Yeah.
It's like my opinion is like that's we all know that's not the only path, but for some reason, our entire education system is pushing everybody into massive debt to go get skill sets that they can't actually turn into anything. And so if there are more people in the world teaching others in this apprenticeship way, which there's literal like official apprenticeships, that you could do. But when we're saying that, it's like, it's us building courses, putting our information into digital programs. That is an apprenticeship in a way. It's mentorship. And if there are more people out there putting that, giving people options,
Yeah.
more people are going to be able to gain skill sets that they don't have to go the university path. They
Yeah.
don't have to be pushed that direction unless the thing that they want to do literally requires it.
Yes. Right. No, right.
Occupations
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you speaking my heart right there, my identity, right? Yeah, that was really well said. And I don't even think I have anything to add to that. That was just well put.
Agreed too, by the
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Okay. So what does that look like now? Because that's big picture, right? And that's the infinite game, right? Like, we are gonna take down the education system, and like I'm very certain of that, and I will love every second, right?
Can I add just a little bit
Yes,
in that?
please. Yes.
Having gone through formal education, I don't know that I would necessarily say that I'm anti, but what I can't abide by is that inside of those systems, the same degree of accountability when we say on your sales page, you're making a promise of transformation, right? I think the same thing happens inside the walls of the formal education system, in that there's not enough accountability for, like, people are paying you a lot of money and you're not getting them the skill set that they need in order to live the life they want to live.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, like, in our models, we talk a lot about it as like, all professionals come in and learn our models, like, amen, let's do it, because it's needed.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the topics we talk about is I do think that there's a place for that formal education. I think without the actual getting into the transformation, there's so much wrong with the model. And I do agree with that, but it's an interesting debate.
Well, okay, so I have four sisters,
Yeah.
and my oldest sister went through a couple years of college and then decided to go a different route. But my next sister in line, like, we're talking like college, like gonna be a lawyer, like teacher. She hates the system. She hates it. But she's like, I'm gonna take it down from the inside. Goes to college, the whole thing. My next sister down, full ride, valedictorian, like, speech of it. Like, now works at MasterCard, I think, in mergers and acquisitions. And like, I tell her every day, I'm like, it was a scam, right? We debate this heavily, and believe me, I understand the other side, right? And this is what you guys should lead with, by the way. Like, I'm so serious. Like, if this is really what you're passionate about, clearly, this is what people will buy into. And like, this is what you're going to get people to pick your sides over, right? Because it's not going to be the client experience. Like, because I'm like, I don't care. I mean, like, I do.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
because I'm like,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm like, I do care about my clients, but I'm like, I have a business to run.
Right.
Right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure I'm only going to do the thing. And I think a lot of people are probably in that boat.
Yes.
But like, you get me bought into this, and I'm like, I will literally fund you. Let's go. Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because you're talking about, like, from an economic standpoint, you're talking about social mobility. Because the number one factor in social mobility is your skill set, is your ability to level up on skill set. And
Are you, this is going to sound like way out of left field, but are you either of you into blockchain at all?
into blockchain?
Blockchain, like crypto blockchain?
No, I cannot follow it. Like,
Okay, that's fine.
It down to me stupid. No,
Okay,
I'm like,
here's the
smart,
one.
but I don't get
We're not
it.
going to go down that route, but here's why I bring this up. Because up until literally blockchain existed, the fundamental structure of how information, data, and power and capital and money was, like, created, stored, and moved was all centralized. We did not have technology that allowed the individual to be empowered. Now we do.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, when people are like, oh, you're into crypto, I'm like, not what you think, right? Like, I could care less about meme coins. They're entertaining. Don't get me wrong. It's straight gambling, right?
Yeah.
But the underlying technology that takes this and this concept of centralized power and puts it into the hands of creators,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so NFTs, everyone thinks of monkeys. I'm like, no. An NFT is, you take this information, and now it's a literal digital asset that you can buy, and I can, like, buy and sell access to information in an asset form it's like colleges could only do that.
Right.
You and I couldn't do that,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I think that from a technology standpoint, I actually think that you're probably way better positioned than you even realize. Well, I know that because if you don't know blockchain, to capitalize on that though, right? And it's interesting that's where you're coming from to me, because I think you're really early on a trend that some might think you're not that early on. Like the whole, anti-education. I'm like, yeah, that's not really the trend though. It's
Right.
literally the shift back to human empowerment,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Like the
exactly.
individual,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's the end goal, then let's bring it, I want to make it tactical. Or
Okay.
I want to bring it back to current,
Yeah.
which is, what tools are you working on or have or now or available now, services, products, right? Where that people can go and learn or use what you're talking about here.
Like where would they go to learn more about what we do, kind of, or
I
more
mean,
of
sure,
the-
you can link to it. That's totally
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But I just mean like, what
Like how do we do it?
what tools are available right now? Like what do
Oh,
you
oh,
have?
oh,
Like
oh,
what do
I
you
see.
like? You're like, hey,
I
this
see.
is what we found that this really works well, or this like give me a roadmap, I guess.
Yeah. And this is a tough one. And this was actually the hardest thing I think about being in the entrepreneurial space is
Mm.
because we don't tend to have the same resources and capacity that big businesses do, that the big enterprises do in the realm of technology. Because developing the type of technology that you're talking about, while it is increasingly becoming more accessible, it still requires a pretty big team and a pretty big budget in order to get across the finish line, something that is fairly autonomous in the market, right?
No, I just meant like I'm a coach and I'm doing $15,000 a month, and I am like, yeah, I'm bought into that vision. I'm telling you, lead again, like for real, like but like I'm bought into that, and like I actually want a really good client. Like I actually am willing to I'll even sacrifice some growth. I'll put that on pause for a second. I'm good with my 15,000 for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
I'm going to go build, like I'm going to go learn this. I'm going to make it a priority.
Yeah.
Like where does one go to? The problem with principles and frameworks is that they're not tactical, right? And it drives me crazy because I'm just like, once I see it, I can just figure out how to do it.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's no, that's a big gap, right? So
Yeah.
where does someone go? Like, where would you walk me through what someone would go through, how you would where you'd recommend someone go to learn and the process you would take them through? Does that make sense?
So like if it wasn't if we weren't teaching them, how would they learn it?
Oh, you can give me yours.
Okay.
Like, where do I start?
Okay. So I mean, the first thing is, so we do have a framework that we take somebody through.
Please.
And so it's a 5-part framework. So align is the first part. What we were talking about is first you have to figure out what kind of guy do you want to be, right? And what's the intention of the experience.
Is it possible with these 5 steps?
Yeah.
Could you do I go through it right now, all
Sure.
5 steps,
Yeah.
60 seconds a step or something.
Yeah, let's try it.
we try it?
Yeah.
That'd
Let's
be
try
fun.
it. It's good. I love it. I love getting posts out. Okay. So the first question, this typically, because the first part of align is a lot about what's happening inside your head and your heart, right? And so that doesn't typically happen fast. Normally you need reflection in order to do that. So, but I'll ask
Let's
the high
pretend
level stuff because you're pretty self-aware.
Maybe,
and, and you exercise metacognition pretty well. So, all right. So the first thing is, and you kind of already answered it, but to what degree do you actually want to hold somebody accountable? How much do you actually want to crawl inside someone's business and give them direct feedback and be there in the process with them and give them feedback along the way?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Holding them accountable or being involved in giving them feedback?
Oh, I love this question. What's the difference in your mind?
One of them is I'm responsible for engaging them. The other one is they come to me and I give them feedback.
Got it. Okay. So we'll stay with the feedback one for now.
Pretty heavily.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go high. All right. And then how accessible do you want to be? So low, medium, high. Low is not at all accessible. High would be I'm in there at least every week. I'm accessible at least every week.
Oh, every week.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. So we're high already. Okay, cool. The next one is you probably have a problem that you've been trying to solve your entire life. And you've probably just tried to solve it in a million different ways through identities you've tried on throughout your life. But what is the problem that you have tried to figure out how to solve again and again and again?
For me or
For you.
that I haven't solved it?
You probably, so what we find is it's an infinite game.
Okay. Yeah.
You're
okay.
probably trying to
Okay,
solve the
making sure
problem
that-
and
yeah,
you're probably more
100%.
refined in
Yep.
your understanding of the problem, but
Yep.
you'll never actually solve it. It's your
Yep.
life work.
100%. Okay. It is, how does one consistently, how do you consistently get in the right rooms and know the right people?
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Get in the right rooms and know the right people.
Meaning
Okay.
The problem is we do not have a lack of information problem. everything can be solved through a relationship. And I hate relationships because they're messy and they're like, you got to like trust people and ew. But like, guess what? At the end of the day, here we are, and Jesus loves everybody, so therefore I have to, right? You know what I mean? Right. But genuinely though, relationships have changed my life more than anything else. And the thing is I grew up a super insecure kid that wasn't the cool kid and everything like that. And believe me, I'll tell you what, like I was aware that there was no reason anyone to talk to me. So I was like, how do I give them one? Right. Yeah.
I love that so much. Okay.
Yeah.
So we would first take those. So those two things are like the most fundamental. Of course, there's a lot of depth there, but those are the
Yeah.
fundamental things.
Okay.
We know you want to be accessible. We know you want to feel accountable through
Mm.
feedback.
Yep.
And we know why.
Yep. Yep.
And that relationships are important to you, which makes sense why you're high on those two things.
Yes, definitely.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Then the next thing is we would actually go into crafting what that journey is. The very first step in crafting the journey is you have to get them to step. So you have a vision of what you want to do and what you want to do for them, but it would be like, what are you helping people step into? Not the buy, like, what's the new thing? What's the new identity?
Yep. So we are 95% in the wealth space. Like we work with business owners. It is the identity is I make people more money than what they pay me. And the expanded version of that is the identity you have is if someone interacts with you and chooses to entrust you with their value, dollars, time, anything, but we just measure it in dollars, right? They better leave better off, right? And so the identity is that I make people more money than what they pay me. I leave people better off. I contribute and like amplify their life.
Okay.
That makes sense?
So
Yeah.
I am using words you did not say, but let me just make sure. So
Yes.
it's like I'm stepping into, if I'm going to be delivering the service, it's like almost a pay it forward model where it's like I'm coming in and I'm delivering something because I made more money than I gave Josh, and I'm going to pass that down onto anybody who I work with as well.
Yeah, I mean, that does happen. No, I literally mean that. I think the biggest issue, our saying is get paid, be free. Okay. And I'm like, I know that in religion, it's like he paid, you're free, right? That's my belief. But like in the game of business, it's like, guess what? You get to be free when you have gone and you have actually made someone else's life better. Like when you've solved a problem, when you've earned the ability to be free, right? And getting paid is a representation of the fact, like you can only get paid if you are like, if you can charge whatever you want, as long as you deliver more than what you promised or what they paid, right? And so like when people are like, how do you charge so much? I'm like, because if someone gives me $100,000, there is no scenario. Like I will have to be dead before you do not make more than $100,000, even if nothing goes to plan. I will personally go sell your offer for you if I have to, right? And so the identity of like personal responsibility and like the identity of being a problem solver and the identity of like understanding who you're working with and being like, okay, I know how I'm going to help you and I know how we're going to exponentially produce. And it's my responsibility because I'm choosing that and I'm going to get paid for it.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hence the why heavy. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're at like step 3 now. So we've got the it aligns with you. We've got the what kind of guy do you want to be? First one is what identity do you invite people to step into, which is actually usually in the missing link programs that we see. They go straight into the next step, which is program logistics. So what's involved? Like how often do I need to show up? What do I need to do? Like what's going to be, what am I actually going to do?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where this is when you would inject the logistics of the program.
Yeah.
And typically with the logistics of the program, they don't have that. It's just like a course outline, or it's they don't have any kind of like, what are the major milestones of accomplishment in my program? So it'd be, Josh, what's the major milestones in your program?
Got it. Yep. So it would be validated offer as fast as humanly possible. Phase 2 would be 0 to 1, which is podcast goes from nothing to existing, right? Then it's next level would be scale it till you're maxed. So you can get it to 7 figures. Some people are like multi-6. Some people are the model of like, this is where I'm comfortable, like you're doing consistently. And then 4 is leverage through personal brand, right? And that's pretty far down the road. Like you're with us for a while at that point, but those are the 4 benchmarks.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So then the next step is now we're going to take those 4 benchmarks. And this is again where most people fall down. And it is, okay, so let's just take the very first one, right? So what was the first one again?
Validated offer assessment.
Okay, validated offer
And
assessment.
validated with the context of it has to,
I love it.
right?
Okay,
So that
okay.
type of validated, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's validated as fast as possible. So again, at this point, most of the time, I guarantee know how to teach this, right?
Mhm.
But where most people again don't add is like, what is the behavioral ask is what we call it. What are the thing you're actually asking people to do, and then how do they actually show it back to you? What's
Oh, I
the
see what
feedback
you mean
loop?
by the science.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the basically like,
Got
okay,
it.
you're going to teach. What's the behavioral ask? What's the feedback loop? How do they show it, and how do they get feedback? How do they know they did it? Right. And it's not, I'm going to let them figure it out, or if whatever they get from it, let them do it. No. It is very high structured, high support. This is what actually is happening. And you just rinse and repeat that cycle for each of your milestones. Right. And then you would inject nurture. So this is where we do what's called a journey pipeline. So it's, exactly what you should be expecting from me behaviorally because you've mapped it all out. So now we have a software basically that does what we call engagement signals. So now you're just looking for the signals. You're saying, okay, am I seeing the signals along the way? And then you're adjusting with nurture. Momentum boost.
You know how I'd sell your offer. That's good. That's good. Yeah, that's really good. Well done. That's well done.
So
Like you've
that's
spent some time on this or something.
Yeah.
and that's only actually the first 2 steps of our 5-step framework, but the rest of it is more of like system. So the next one's like system. You need the system to actually be able to do that, and then you need to actually go launch it, and then it's call it respond, because once you launch something, you put it out in the world, you're not done.
Yeah.
Feedback, and then
Yeah.
you got to go
No
do
one
it.
ever
Yeah,
takes
exactly.
the happy path.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
No
that's
matter
that's
how
the
good
rest
you
of it.
design it.
Yeah, they will find the holes.
Oh, they will.
And
Yeah,
they will
yeah.
let you know.
But here's where it gets exciting. And this is, I'm going to geek out a little bit. Okay, so there's this famous picture that we use all the time, and that's on the respond. And it's like, okay, so imagine that you're a brilliant designer in the world, designed this like perfect sidewalk through the park, and it's gorgeous. You have this sidewalk and beautifully paved, and you have flowers and everything, right? You have this picture of it. And so you built it. Right? What ends up ultimately happening is there's this little tiny where the grass and the sod gets like walked on, right? Because they're not doing that you want. So, key question though at that moment, most of us, if we let our ego drive, says, gotta get them back onto the path. Let's put up a fix. Let's put up like something. Let's get them back on the path because we know that's the path. But what they're failing to remember is that the essence of transformation is based on curiosity. So if curiosity is taking them in that direction and I can somehow still get them to the end result, even though they're going that direction, then I need to modify my program. Feed in with so you start playing the dance of like, is this a fence situation or is this a curiosity situation? And I get to adjust.
You don't have to answer this if you don't want to.
Yeah.
What's the number one hardest thing about selling this?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so the market we've been operating in is entrepreneur funnel market, right?
Yeah.
The same thing that you brought up earlier is like, but why do I care? I have a business I'm running. We can't articulate or get them to listen long enough to get them to care. People that are already established, like let's say you and your level and up. They're like, but why do I care? So really, like one of the answers is that we've worked with is, well, it is actually affecting your bottom line, because if you're delivering crap programs, they're not going to actually stay with you or move up. We've been working with people. We do have clients that are at that level, but most of the people that we've been working with are people that are just starting. They're coming into this space and they're like, yeah, you guys know what you're talking about. Help me create my thing, but they're new. And so they don't have the traffic game figured out. So that's not really our ideal.
Yep.
Should I even bring up the other market? Because
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
know. Okay. So because of that reason, because we can't get the big guys to care and the little guys don't have traffic, we're like, well, let's go find people that have traffic and don't have a product and they don't have an ego of like, I know better than you and my program's fine and I'm not doing anything incorrect, right? You know, like, all right, I can't fix it. It is the way it is. So that's what was starting to take us to the content creator YouTuber world, where it's like they have the audience but they need the product. So they're kind of like the new guy, but they have the traffic part figured out.
Yeah, Alex Ramosi was on Stephen Graham's podcast, Iced Coffee Hour. Did you see that interview? It was interesting. He was talking with him, and I can't remember what Stephen Graham said. And it was like something about like, oh, you made all this, like, you're selling high ticket. Like, I can't imagine that. And Alex Ramosi looked at him and he goes, you don't understand. If I had your audience, I would be a billionaire. Right. And it was like exactly what you just articulated right there, which is like people with audience don't understand offer. Right. And people with offer don't understand audience. Right. And it's because they're literally contradicting games. Right. It's so difficult to get them aligned. And if you can do that, oh, well, it's like viral brand movement, right? Yeah.
Well, going back to one of your questions of like the early entry offers, what we found is that when we do work with content first people, because they're so not used to creating these type of offers, and they want time freedom still, because that's how the relationship they've had with their audience is an asynchronous relationship. And so jumping them right into a coaching model is like, no. So a lot of times we have to do those low ticket first entry offers. It's not for their audience. And it's not even necessarily for list building. It's just to get them comfortable with like creating an offer and putting it out into the market. And that's, yeah.
Okay. We're going to wrap it and we're ending with some rapid fire questions. And I'm going to tease the audience. Do you have a couple minutes afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay. Cause I want to geek out deep on something and then we can decide whether we want to release it or not.
Okay.
That's not their actual objection. And I will tell you what the one is, but not on the podcast. But I will tell you what I know I said it, but I said it because I'm like, it's the objection we say, right? Money psychology. We'll get to that. This was fantastic. And I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. It was really fun. And props to you both. Like seriously, like for caring enough about your craft to geek out. I have to, right? To geek out on it, right?
It's an awesome name, didn't we?
I mean, we really did. It's like just
people say it everywhere. It's awesome.
like geek out. Like I'm like now, like with the shirt, I'm just like, I get it. I get it now, right? I'm in on it. But seriously, like props to you both, and mad respect on that. And I do think that it is, I think that it is needed in the space that you're in, and big picture, I'm on board. So props to you both. Okay. Couple rapid fire questions before we wrap up. I'll just go one and then the other. I'm curious, is there any book right now that you're reading that you're like, yeah, you should definitely go read this? Or if not, like what's one book that you have read that's like, yeah, you should go for entrepreneurs specifically?
Okay.
Can I say the obvious one? Because you will have another one in your back pocket. I know it. Okay. So all the things that we've been talking about taking the product development world, in corporate, and applying it into entrepreneurship, a lot of that stuff can be learned. Those principles can be learned in a book called Game Thinking. By Amy Jo Kim.
Okay.
She is like the master of it. She has helped very game thinking. Okay. Yeah. Popular games like this, like Sims and like, is it Candy Crush?
Yeah.
That she's like, she helped develop, where they're like highly addicting, right? They last forever. They have their fan base. People go back to it all time and time again. And so taking those types of principles and infusing them into a program of like, well, how do I get people to get addicted to my thing and keep coming back to it again and again and again?
Okay.
There's so like, we have this kind of like ongoing discussion of like, okay, when you're reading Russell's the trilogy, at which point do we insert game thinking? Because there's a specific spot in the Secrets trilogy of like, okay, read this, then read this, but like insert game thinking and then continue this.
Wow. Okay.
So like I would say like it needs to be part of your.
All right.
Like,
well, now you
go read it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And I'm sure you've got another one.
Yeah. So I have one. It's going to seem like a plug, but so Joseph Pine wrote an article of experience economy. Him and Gilmore wrote the first one, and that was the shift from commodity to an experience economy, which obviously is a lot of a foundation of our work. But lately, he actually is doing what a lot of authors are doing right now. If you haven't got this trend, is they're doing early manuscript development in Substack, in a private community in Substack. So Joseph Pine is coming out with his transformation economy book. But if you go into his Substack, it's not released yet. But you can get, I think he's up to 8 chapters now. You can get the first 8 chapters, and every time he's releasing a new one of the transformation economy. And so it's not actually a released book yet, but it is a game changer. If you actually want to play the game of transformation, this is like a fundamental read.
Okay. Man, fire. All right. What's one bucket list item you want to do before you die?
Bucket list. Okay, so at least for 2025, I'm trying to go 2025. I said this last year on the FHL stage. It's like, I want to ride a motorcycle, Bonneville 120, or Bonneville, Triumph Bonneville, Across Ireland. That is currently my bucket list I'm going for. And I want to
That
do a
sounds like so
solo
much
truck.
fun. That's
Yes,
awesome.
yes. And I
I
want
had to
do
sell my
like
motorcycle when I was young.
oh man.
Yeah.
Yes.
I chose, not her. I chose to do that because I'm irresponsible on a motorcycle.
Sure.
They're fun. That's a good one. Yeah. You?
I've always wanted to go to Iceland, and just so happens to be that the next like total eclipse that is happening over a country that I'm willing to go to
Yeah.
is in Iceland in 2026. So not that
Oh,
far
wow.
off.
All right.
So it's my goal to take, and it's like 2 days before my husband's birthday, and so I'm like,
Amazing.
okay, we're gonna make this happen somehow.
That's super cool. That's a good one. Okay. Who is one celebrity is not the right word. Who's one person, like influential figure that you want to meet before you or they die?
I don't know that I have a rapid fire answer to this because I have been meeting like the people that are on that list lately. I don't aspire like very highly. I mean, okay, this is no knock to them, but like Russell Brunson was on my list, like Steve Larson was on my list because they were in my world. They're like my Dream 100, and I've been
Yeah.
able to meet them so recently. I haven't replaced them on my list. So let me think while you
All right.
answer.
That's fair.
I think for me, there's two of them. So David White, my favorite poet. He's kind of poet gone rogue, talked to business world and came back. For me to have an in-depth conversation with him would be
Very cool. Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
And then Elizabeth Gilbert is another one on my bucket list. I aspire to one day write, and
All right.
I have my answer.
All right.
We actually were just talking about this the other day. Mike Rowe. I love Mike Rowe, and it fits in because of the, he does a lot of the work in the education, and just that's his
That's a good one.
organization right now.
That we've not had that answer before. Yeah. What do you think the number one answer we get is?
Obama.
No. Think presidential
Trump.
figure, but
Oh,
but like
Trump.
one over Elon. Elon's an entrepreneur, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
Trump's up
That's a good
there.
one.
I mean, Trump's on mine. Elon's number one for me. He's just like, I just need to make sure he's real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
Trump just because he's so. Is he real? Like, I don't even know what I mean there either. But then like Tom Brady, I'm a big fan just for
Okay.
excellence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. And then final question is: we used to ask on Think Different Theory. We used to ask if you're on your deathbed, like, what's one parting piece of advice? We're flipping it, and we say, all right, what's one piece of advice that someone can go and implement in their life right now that will make a noticeable difference or significant improvement in their life on a daily basis?
So my response is gonna be infuriating to most people, and I think it is like, stop trying so hard and just go and let go. I think when we let, not get too religious, but like when we let divine actually, I think actually Steve said it so perfectly lately. He's like, nature abhors a vacuum, and when you actually allow spirit, divine, whatever your belief is, to actually like come through you, better things happen.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think especially to all those high achievers out there, like, stop crying so hard, just allow it to through you.
That's good.
So funny that you said that because my mind went there too, but I have a little bit of a different spin on it in this still like creating the vacuum. It's like, just slow down. Slow down and allow moments in your life because that's when the best things happen. Like, even business, the best ideas that come to me are when I've just slowed down and I'm like, I'm just gonna let it happen. We get thoughts driving, we get thoughts in the shower. It's like when you shut off distractions, like turn off distractions, like go meditate, pray, whatever it is, like go do that, and it's gonna change your life.
Yeah, that's good. My wife is yoga. Teaches yoga.
Yeah. Yes.
500 hour, 600 hours are crazy amount.
It's amazing.
And she's like, slow is smooth. Smooth is fast.
Yes.
And whenever I'm like stressed, she's like, go do a yoga class. And I'm like, and lay there and do nothing. And then I go and I'm like, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. It's just to lay there and do nothing.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you both so much. We will link all your links down below, but where can people go find out more about you and geek out?
Yeah. It's really, really hard to remember. It's geekoutconnect.com/connect.
All right. Geekoutconnect.com/connect. All right. We will link that down below. Any other ones? Do you have like socials or anything?
We hang out a lot on Facebook and then our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is called, what is it now? Get Paid to Geek Out.
Paid to Geek Out.
Yeah.
All right. I like to get paid. I mean, I like the geek out part too. Awesome. Well, thank you both. Seriously, for your time and for geeking out with me on it and like sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge and experience on it. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. You're a very good interviewer.
Oh, well,
really
thank you.
appreciate the space that you create. Yeah.
Well, after like 400 or 500 of them.
Yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah, you learn a few things. All right, everyone, we're gonna wrap it there. If you're new here, consider subscribing. If you've been here for a while, thank you. And as always, hustle, hustle. God bless. Get paid. Be free. We'll see you next time. Peace.